can have your attention, we'll call the meeting to order. Our Friday, August 3rd, 2012 meeting. Press has been notified, and of course I will remind you that we are filming a tape delay for a later time. If we could, will we have the roll call?
Mr. Bowles?
Here.
Mr. Lamb? Mr. Coleman?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Elmore?
Here.
Ms. Henry?
Here.
Mr. Irvin? Mr. Cleaner?
Here.
Mr. Dunn?
Here.
Ms. Hartman? Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Senator Letterman? Mr. Lee?
Here.
Mr. McIntyre?
Here.
Mr. Norwood? Dr. Kelly? Ms. Richardson? Mr. Stanton?
Yes. Thank you. Moving to the next item, approval of the minutes. You've had an opportunity to look at and peruse the minutes. Do I have a motion for approval?
Make a motion that we approve the minutes for June 15th, 2012 meeting.
We have a second.
Second.
Are there any changes, anything else that we need to look at for the minutes? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Moving to the next item, committee reports. Executive Affairs, we met this morning. Had a good number of you there, and I certainly appreciate that. Just some general discussions on the budget, report on some athletic issues, and a continuation of discussion for the strategic plan. Really, no action was taken, and no action will be taken during the meeting today. Any questions? Anybody that wasn't there? Any discussion on that? Hearing none, we'd move on to academic affairs and accreditation. I think Mr. Jones is going to give that report.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll share this report with you on behalf of Ms. Hartung. Chairwoman Hartung called the meeting to order. The chair of the faculty, Dr. Flanagan, opened the meeting, giving us an update on what's going on with the faculty. We've got 19 new faculty members this fall. Several of those are related to the nursing program. A number of the others are faculty members that replaced those that had retired. There's a new faculty orientation and reception that will be held on August the 17th, and the first faculty meeting will be held in October. And Dr. Flanagan reported that the new faculty and the new officers are excited and ready to get started. Next, we had a report from Dr. Peter King on enrollment and enrollment management. We are about, compared to last year at present, we're about 9.4% increase in enrollment, with first-year student enrollment. Total enrollment is about even or on par with last year. They're obviously very busy in the registrar's office at this time processing application and financial assistance. We had a conversation about orientation. We talked about the mandatory overnight stay that incoming freshmen go through, and Dr. King was sharing that that's not just to show up and find out where your classes are, but that's an opportunity to meet other students, hopefully form friendships, find your way around campus, and we found, or we think, that provides for a better retention experience than those that maybe come and don't know where the classes are, or it's more of a social thing than just picking up your schedule and those type things. So he's very pleased with how the orientation process is going, and think that they've got that well tuned. So we thank Dr. King for that report. Next, we heard from Provost Chapman, giving us an update on the College of Liberal Arts. We've got the Department of Fine Arts is completing an accreditation report for the Visual Arts and Art Education 10-year membership evaluation. And those folks will be on campus next semester to work on that accreditation visit. I think the most exciting news that came out of the provost report was he shared with us that for the first time, all of the graduates from the School of Nursing in the spring, I think there were 40 of those, had a 100% pass rate on the NCLEX, which is the nursing licensure examination, and that was just unbelievable. So we're very excited about that and very proud of that. Then we had a few minutes of open dialogue, just talking about things that are going on this year. Dr. King told us a little bit about the McNair Scholars. I think we've got 14 McNair Scholars for this year and 13 Patriot Scholars for this year, I believe, if my numbers are correct. And that's our report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good report. Any questions or discussion for Mr. John? Hearing none, we'll move on to development alumni. Mr. Freeman.
Good morning, sir, and thank you. We had our meeting this morning, and we virtually, for the Development and Alumni Affairs Committee, review, first of all, of the National Nonprofit Leadership Institution, reported stations from the previous past 10 years. Staff reviewed the past 10 years and provided committee with backgrounds and the demographics on the participants, which we have touched approximately 35 counties, and really reached out to all 46 counties in some shape, some form. When the leadership starts up again in this coming September, it will be in its 11th year in existence, and it's a very vital outreach program for the state of South Carolina. Annual Donor Scholarship is Thursday, October the 25th at 6 p.m. at the University Commons. So we hopefully that will be a great attended. We had a briefing by the Alumni Affairs Committee, Mr. Julian Young. As the Alumni Affairs Office prepares for the beginning of the new academic year, with numerous events being planned, the Alumni Association and the Student Alumni Association also volunteered for Freshman Move-In Day, which will be held on August the 18th. Hopefully all that can and will attend will be there. It's a great event to have and to be a part of. And again, I think we're going to raise Dr. Carter's salary for serving hot dogs again this year.
But it's an hourly wage. Regrettably.
We have had over 100 incoming freshmen sign the SAA membership interest cards. What we did throughout the orientation, various orientations, we have had three of them this year. The Alumni Association actually had an ice cream social for the students. Several receptions and socials have been planned around the PD to include September the 6th at the Darlington-Hartsville Alumni Reception. It's going to be held at the Pavilion at Lawton Park at 5:30 p.m. to 7:30. Sponsors will be alumni Mr. James Harrell, who is the alumni board chair, president this year, and our own Mr. Stephen Jones. Also on September the 13th, we have an FMU After Hours event at the Southern Hopes Brewing Company, sponsored by alumni co-owner Brandon Deaton. And then also August the 30th, we will have one in Horry, Georgetown, alumni reception at the Marion Inns at Grand Dunes in Myrtle Beach from 5 to 7:30. Sponsored by our very own Dr. Randall Dozier, Mrs. Lisa Emery, Laura Crother, and alumni Heather Crawford. And then a short meeting, we also have started back up, hopefully, the what we call the power lunches, where various businesses in CSRA, in the immediate area, have asked that if you have any employees that are alumni of the Francis Marion University, we can have a power luncheon, and they invite all the other members to attend at that same time. Starting in the fall, Department of Biology and Psychology will hold the alumni receptions in October, and all events are being published on the Francis Marion University Alumni Facebook group page. The class of 2016 Facebook page will be published by the end of August of this year. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Good report. Refresh my memory. What's the move-in date where we help? What's that date?
It's August the 18th, and it starts, I think, at 9 o'clock p.m. Excuse me, 8 o'clock a.m. That is, a.m.
Yeah, I only mention that because if you hadn't had that experience, come by and do it. It's kind of a fun day, and there are a lot of things going on, a lot of excitement, kids coming back to campus, and you don't have to stay all day. And although we kind of sort of help move in, they have a lot of, how would I say, younger, stronger athletic teams and people helping, and
Mr. Chairman, the provost has prevailed upon us for an exemption above those beyond a certain age. We've considered this, and we've decided that that's very sensible. There is, however, a 30-page form that has to be filled out relative to acquiring that exemption. I think the provost has been working on that form for about 6 weeks now, and hopefully we'll have it soon.
It's almost finished, sir.
Good. So there is an out for everybody if they need it, if you're above a certain age.
well, they do have medical services available too, for those of us that are medically fragile, and we can only lift certain weight limits. So thank you for that report, Mr. Freeman. Good job. And any other questions, comments? Moving on to financial affairs and facilities, Mr. George McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our committee met this morning, and we did review the budget summary found in your notebooks. However, the year is very, very young. We have only about 2 weeks of information on this budget summary review, so it's very preliminary. I'll just note for the record that we have collected about 14% of our income, and we've expended about 5% of our budget, but it's very new. So we're just starting a new fiscal year, so we'll keep you posted as we move along. I will note for the record that we fared very well in the final state appropriations, and I want to stop and just recognize Daniel Dukes for his great job in representing us and our needs at the state level. Thank you, Daniel, and of course Senator Leatherman. They do a tremendous job in representing us at the state level, and we fared very well in the budget. I'll just note that we did receive $1.6 million in deferred maintenance funding, $500,000 in recurring funding for our nurse practitioner program, and $100,000 in non-recurring funding for our nurse practitioner program. So we fared very, very well compared to other institutions at the state level, and thanks to you guys. In the deferred maintenance area, in that budget of that $1.6 million, I'll just mention that that some of the major items that we'll be addressing will be the repair and repaving of parking lots A and C, the refurbishment of and upgrades in the Hyman Fine Arts Center. I think we've already completed refurbishments of the carpet and the tile replacement in the University Center. We also will have some upgrades in our equipment in the athletic department and various vehicle and equipment needs, and then various other upgrades, cosmetic and infrastructure needs throughout the campus. So much needed deferred maintenance projects are now being able to be addressed with this new funding, and we're very appreciative of that. I'll also note, if you remember at our last meeting when we passed our budget, the state budget was still under consideration and debate. And it did pass, and our funding, as I said, was in good shape, and we feel like that the budget that we did pass, which was we thought was maybe in some flex at that time, we feel very adequate to meet our needs for this upcoming fiscal year. So we're in good shape, and don't foresee any major problems financially here at the university. And that my committee report is very brief this time because of the newness of the fiscal year, but that completes it, Mr. Chairman. Be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions or discussion? I would mention and want to thank Dr. Carter and Jake Kispert and George for their work. The worst thing you can do is neglect your facilities and not have a plan in place. I think we have a fairly aggressive plan, and I hope Debbie would agree with that our facilities are probably second to none across the state, and they're quality facilities and help provide a quality education for our students. And that doesn't just happen. It has to have a plan, and you saw that plan yesterday afternoon for the most part, how it really extends out for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I thank them for their work, and hopefully y'all will be around for the next 20 years to make sure that happens. So, thank you. Moving along to Student Affairs and Athletics, Mr. Gunn.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, members of the board. The Student Affairs and Athletics Committee met this morning, and we received updates from Teresa Ramey and Murray Hartzler. Dean Ramey reports that University Center renovations have been completed with new carpet, tile, and furniture, and a renovated weight room. The big item coming up for her this in August, of course, is the move-in of new students, as we mentioned before, on the 18th. There'll be a pool party and cookout, primarily geared toward freshmen, on the 19th. As usual, there have been several other activities during the week. There will be a comedian on Monday, which is, I understand, attended generally by over 1,000 people. Hypnotist, maybe that's the one that was 1,000 people. Anyway, already, I got hypnotized. But anyway, both of these is usually a big hit. There's some other activities that are out prior to classes starting, and then there's an alcohol awareness program called Mocktails Educational Event that starts on August 22nd. Again, we've talked about the move-in. The student orientation starts that Monday, and then other organizational activities taking place. And as has been mentioned in other reports, we are expecting somewhere between 775 and 800 freshmen that weekend. I already talked about the hot dogs, and so that was one of the stellar points of what was going on. Because I understand it starts at 10 o'clock, Dr. Gardner. That's kind of early, but that sounds good.
You'd be surprised, Trustee. You'd be surprised.
10 o'clock. The athletics department, Murray had indicated to me yesterday that since we were here meeting in May, there has not been a single athletic contest that the university has participated in. So he didn't have a very long report, other than he's doing a lot of prospective planning. Got a couple new coaches coming in, new soccer coaches, and the first women's soccer game is on the 21st here at the new field, 7 o'clock against Presbyterian. The first men's game, August 30th, at 7 o'clock against Catawba. So if you are able, please try to attend. And the last item in the athletic report would be that the relationship that we cultivated with the Red Wolves this year went quite well. So we're very pleased with the way that went.
Any questions or discussion? I want to thank y'all for those excellent reports. And now moving to my favorite part of the meeting, the President's report.
Well, you put extraordinary pressure on me, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, let me just pick up on a couple of the items that have been previously discussed, and if I might bring to a head the agreements that we had with the board, just to remind each of you. We did present the strategic plan yesterday. Dr. Chapman and Dr. Flanagan presented the university strategic plan, which has been a year in development. I appreciate the board for the good interaction relative to that plan, comments, suggestions, and the like. Remember, we will fine-tune that plan, and that will come back to you at the November meeting for final approval. That plan's already been approved by the faculty. It'll come back to you at the November meeting for final approval. I'll offer you this suggestion. Any thoughts that you might have, each of you have copies of that plan. Any other comments, please forward them to either Dr. Chapman or Dr. Flanagan between now and, say, the next 60 days or so. We spent a lot of time yesterday talking about the facilities master plan, and the comments from the board were I thought very reflective, very instructive. Mr. Kispert and I will go back, rework some of that facilities master plan based upon suggestions and ideas that came from the board. We will bring that back to you at the spring meeting, that March meeting. That'll be for one more review, and then perhaps at the June meeting, we'll bring that facilities master master plan back to you for approval. So on the facilities master plan, given the iterations that involved in that, given the plans we put out there and the money involved, we'll take longer on that one. So the board will get a couple of more views of that plan and opportunities to respond. If you do recall yesterday, each of you promised me that you would get comments back to us on that facilities master plan with regard to your thoughts about many of the projects contained in that plan. Please remember to do that if you will, and we'll also follow up on our part, and then you'll see that again at the spring meeting of the board. Let me just talk for a second about where we are on some of the curricular issues, following up on the academic affairs report that Trustee Jones gave a little earlier. As you know, we'll begin our Master of Science Family Nurse Practitioner program and our Master of Science Nurse Educator program beginning this January. This fall, you can expect to see some fairly aggressive advertisements on the part of the university about the enrollment of that first class. All the money is intact to begin that program and to secure its continued funding into the future, especially with the appropriation that we received this past year, and some very generous support that we've received from the Drs. Bruce and Lee Foundation. Of course, that could be said with a great many projects that we undertake at this university. We now have a faculty work group, beginning the process in conjunction with some consultants we've brought in of developing the curriculum for the faculty to review, consider, and work on this fall for the Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial Engineering. Just to remind the board members, assuming everything goes well with that the faculty embraces it, Dr. Flanagan, that the faculty approves the curriculum, that we're able, Dr. Chapman, to get CHE approval for that program in the spring, we would then offer that program in January of 2014. And I would also remind the board that that's a very unique program in a lot of ways. We'll be heavily involved in cooperative efforts with Florence Darlington Technical College and the development of that program, that some of their faculty will be involved with our faculty in the development of that program, and that we'll be using some of their facilities to offer those courses. So again, wonderful opportunity for us to offer a degree here which is critically needed across this region, and join with our technical college partner in making that level of quality education available. We're also beginning the process now of in discussions with the University of South Carolina, looking at either a cooperative or joint program that would be a Master of Science in Physician Assistant Studies. We've talked about that before here. The provost and I have now had 2 extensive discussions with the president and provost of USC, and we now have a joint committee comprised of faculty of the 2 universities beginning to work together to see how that curriculum would be shaped. Given the fact that it's a joint program or cooperative program, and I think that still needs to be resolved between the, given that coordinating committee, it's possible that we could actually bring that program forward a little earlier than 2015, but as they say, the devil ultimately will be in the details in terms of how we work out that process between the 2 universities. Given the fact that it'll be a cooperative and joint program as well, that program, our share of that program, and USC's share of that program will be considerably less expensive than if each institution was developing similar efforts independent of one another. So we'll continue to brief the board into the fall and the spring with regard to the development of that program. Rich, I think it's fair to suggest that by January or February of this year, we should be able to be fairly definitive with regard to the direction and the time frame it would take for us to actually offer that program. So, Mr. Chairman, we'll come back to the board with that if we might. Finally, as a result of a lot of discussion we've had with many of the agricultural producers across the region, extended discussions with NISA, the Northeastern Strategic Alliance, our economic development alliance for the PD region, and the Grand Strand region, we're beginning to look at the feasibility of a Bachelor of Science degree in agribusiness management. Not an agricultural degree, but a degree in agribusiness management that would look at, quite honestly, the business side of the agricultural process, as well as the production and distribution of agricultural products across the region. Ms. Provost, it's my understanding that no such degree exists like that in South Carolina at the present time. It's also my understanding that there's enormous interest in the development of that degree, again, not only from the producers, but also from the distributors like W. Lee Flowers and others who are critically interested in us producing some students who would love to go into the agribusiness world. So, again, we're just beginning that process. The provost and I met with Dean O'Brien earlier in the week, had an extended discussion about the role of the business school in there. And, of course, the biology department will play a major area in that as well. Please understand we're only at the embryonic part of that process, so we'll come back to the board on that one again later in the year as we assess and examine the feasibility of proceeding in that direction. Trustee George McIntyre talked about the appropriations this year, and it was a good year for us. George, the only thing I would add to that is the role that Representative Lowe and Representative Crawford and Representative Alexander played as well, and structuring that appropriation for us on the House side and helping us override the veto to secure that 100,000 non-recurring. But again, this is one of those wonderful cases where our delegation, both House side and Senate side, led by Senator Leatherman, do such a terrific job of working together and serving the interests of this region. Just a word on the Red Wolves. It was a good year with the Red Wolves, and I think we came away from that process understanding that was a wonderful experience for the university. We brought on this campus over the course of summer thousands of men and women, and particularly children, who might not otherwise have ever had an opportunity to come on this campus. Over the next 30 days, we'll discuss with the BARTs as well as with our own staff where we want to go in the future. Mr. Chairman, will consult with the leadership of the board relative to once we have all that data and facts, and then at the November meeting of the board, we'll come back and report to you our sense as to where we might want to be next year relative to a continuing relationship.
Any questions for the President at this time about his report? Hearing none, moving on to unfinished business. I do want to thank the staff and the President and administration for the excellent presentation report yesterday. Many of you were here. We had over 11 board members here, and it was an excellent discussion on strategic plan and development, and just talked about a variety of topics. And I would mention, since we're filming, that we spent a great deal of time yesterday from about 2 o'clock to about 6 yesterday, and then again this morning, a lot of follow-up discussion in committees, and want to thank everybody for their presentation this morning. So although we do have a relatively short board meeting, the work that we do really is done in the committees and prior to the board meeting. So thank everybody for their participation with that. A couple other things I'll mention. Committee structure for next year, really don't have any plan on changing that unless you would like to change or take on something else. I think it worked well, and probably will continue with that through the rest of the year, with one exception. We'll be coming to you for the nominating committee for the officers for next year. probably in September, some discussion on that. So, hearing none, any other unfinished business? With that, any new business that we need to take up or discuss at this time? Hearing none, that probably should conclude our business for this meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.